Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating legal idea that started with a lost machine on a train and might just completely change the rules for air travel. It's a story about how the tiny fine print on a single document can stretch across oceans, continents, and yeah, even into the sky.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. It sounds strange, doesn't it? But believe it or not, the answer lies in this super powerful legal concept that's, well, it's expanding in some truly surprising ways. It's like it creates a kind of legal master key that unlocks protections in places you would never expect.
So where does this all start? Well, not up in the sky, but right here on the ground, with a single shipment that just went wrong. It all traces back to this landmark Supreme Court case from 2004, Norfolk Southern versus Kirby. And this is the case that, maybe even by accident, created this legal master key we're talking about.
Okay, so get this. The damage happens on a train. We're on land, right? But the whole journey started on a ship, all under one single contract. And that was the big question for the court. Which rules apply here? Do you use the rules for the sea or the rules for the rails? It's a huge deal.
So the court came up with this really powerful idea. They decided that this one document, what they called a maritime contract, should govern the entire journey, the whole thing. Because its primary objective was sea travel, maritime law basically followed the cargo even when it was hundreds of miles from the ocean. Wild, right?
And what you're really seeing here is a move from total chaos to, well, clarity. Before this case, you can imagine a single shipment could get tangled up in this messy patchwork of different laws. The Supreme Court basically said, look, for global commerce to work, we need predictability. They valued that clean, uniform set of rules more than anything else.
So that decision set this incredibly powerful precedent. It's like we said, it created a master key. And the power of this key isn't that it's for ships or trains specifically. Its power comes from the idea that one single contract can create one consistent set of rules for a whole complicated journey. Okay, so if this legal master key works for sea and land, what happens when you throw a plane into the mix? This is where the whole theory really, and I mean really, takes off.
So the big leap in logic here, the thing you have to wrap your head around, is that the Kirby doctrine isn't really about the vehicle at all. It's all about the contract's main purpose. If that purpose is international shipping, then the logic can apply whether that cargo is in a shipping container, on a truck, or, you guessed it, in the belly of a 747.
Okay, to really get how this works, we need to talk about something called the Himalaya Clause. And you can basically think of it as the and friends clause. It's a line in the contract where the main shipping company says, hey, see this limited liability I have? Well, it also covers all my friends who are helping out along the way.
And just like that, the and friends list suddenly gets a lot bigger. I mean, a rule that was originally meant to protect, say, dock workers on a pier can now, just through the power of that one contract, stretch its protection to airline mechanics, airport baggage handlers, and even the air carrier itself.
All right, this is where it gets really clever. We're about to see how the specific type of paperwork you use can totally flip the legal script, basically telling a plane it has to follow the rules of a ship.
I know, it sounds impossible, right? How can a shipment be maritime if it never even sees the water? Well, the answer isn't in the sky or on the sea. It's buried deep in the fine print of the shipping documents.
It really all comes down to this. If a freight forwarder uses a standard air waybill, then aviation law applies. Simple. But if they use a document called a bill of lading, which is traditionally a document for sea travel, they can actually argue that maritime rules should apply, even if that cargo is just flying from Denver to Dallas and never gets near an ocean.
And this really gets to the core of the Supreme Court's thinking. They emphasize that it's the form and purpose of the contract, not the physical way it's being transported. That's the deciding factor. The legal DNA of the journey is determined by the paperwork, not by the vehicle. Okay, buckle up, because now we get to the most mind-bending idea in all of this. This is where we push this legal theory to its absolute most provocative limit.
It's a pretty startling question, isn't it? But think about it for a second. When you book a trip with multiple parts, like a cruise that also includes a flight, or a whole vacation package from a tour operator, you're stepping into a new legal world that's defined by that one contract.
So the logic follows the exact same path we've been talking about. Let's say your cruise package is, at its heart, a maritime contract. If something goes wrong on the flight portion of that trip, the cruise line or the tour operator, they're the intermediary, right? They could use their maritime contract to extend their liability limits over to the airline.
And this is the really crucial and kind of scary part. By legally treating a passenger like they're just a piece of commercial cargo, any harm, whether it's a real injury or just awful mistreatment, can be reframed as a simple economic loss, like a dented box. And this could just dramatically slash the compensation a passenger would otherwise be entitled to.
So, right about now, you might be thinking, okay, this is a fascinating legal puzzle, but it's just theory, right? Well, no, it's not. Courts are already moving in this direction, and the biggest names in the shipping world are already using the kinds of contracts that make this all possible.
Just look at the timeline here. You can see the progression so clearly. The Kirby doctrine started with rail, right? Then it expanded to trucks, then even to warehouses miles and miles from any port. This master key has just been unlocking one door after another in the global logistics chain. And the aviation door? It looks like it's next.
So who's pushing these boundaries? Well, it's the giants of global logistics. We're talking about the world's largest shipping and freight companies. They are already routinely using exactly this type of multimodal, maritime-style contract, which makes extending this to aviation not just some wild possibility, but kind of the next logical step in the game. So when you boil it all down, here's the ultimate takeaway. This single, powerful legal idea, the maritime contract, can act like a shield. And that shield, which starts at sea, can then extend its protection over trucks on land and, yes, even planes in the sky. It creates one uniform, predictable set of rules for the whole journey.
So we want to leave you with this final thought. We've seen how a legal document can pretty much turn a plane into a ship, or maybe even a passenger into cargo. It really makes you wonder, if contracts are this powerful, what else can they redefine? It just goes to show you how much the invisible architecture of legal documents is shaping our very physical world. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.